And there we are. So can everybody see my
Your screen.
screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
So these are the questions that we're gonna answer tonight, and so we're gonna start with the Progreso Financiero case.
There's a lot of
And
questions.
the first question is, what are the possibilities cause of Progreso's poor sales performance? You know what? One of the things that I didn't agree or I didn't like it's that they were providing loans to people with who had bad credit or no credit.
You didn't have
Uh,
information to make that. You didn't have information about finance.
exactly. So, so to me, that's kind of risky. You know what I mean? Um, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I completely agree with Ramon. I was reading it and I was like, yeah, probably a good idea to make funds available to people, but the people that they were trying to target didn't have that knowledge of how loans work,
Yeah,
and so they would have to educate them.
yeah.
And whenever you educate someone about something, it always costs money. And so I was kind of thinking I don't know. I didn't really like that as well. That they
And
were trying
I
to
think
build.
if you guys think about it, I think they were kind of greedy because I felt they were hitting the Hispanics, the Latin community. You know what I mean? So, and you're right, Dave. I think a lot of the Hispanics, I don't know. I'm Hispanic, like Nassau, but a lot of my people don't understand finances, if you know what I mean. So I was like, man, these people are trying to get all these customers, but they don't have any credit. They can check their background, and see if they're gonna pay back. So in my opinion, they were getting kind of greedy, trying to get customers, and hopefully they were thinking, well, we're gonna make money, but you know,
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of just people in general like know what APR is and know how much that loan is actually going to cost them with the added interest.
yeah,
So I think that was one of the problems that I saw. Um, is that how are they going to
yeah,
pay back the loan plus interest? So that was one thing, and it was also kind of a bad time, wasn't it? The economy,
yes, it was,
savings and loans industry wasn't doing very good during the housing crash.
yeah. So that was kind of strange, to me. So, but yeah, I do agree with you guys. Anybody else before we go to the next question? No. So the next one, it says, what options are available to improve performance in this case? Well, first of all, I think they should start checking their credits, and do a little bit of research on a background kind of thing, to see if there can be risky customers or they're gonna be customers who are gonna pay on time and all that kind of stuff. So
What
that's my main thing. So
what did you feel about their current background checks that they did?
I don't think they were that explicit, to be honest. I tell you, I think they were more greedy. I think they were trying to get as many customers as they could, and they didn't. And it's shocking to me to say this, but I don't think they. Obviously, they didn't care if they were not paid, because they didn't check uh, extensively. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, that's what I think, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would think doing the credit check, like I would say better if someone had better, like searching for people that have better credit scores, because those people are more likely to go actually pay the the loan back rather than people that have that such bad credit score.
Yeah. So
They just need better customers, basically.
Yeah, they just need a better customer base. I mean, because yeah, you can run credit score, but you could have a low credit score because it's your first time taking out a loan, but you have a job that pays well. But if you base it just off credit scores, like a lot of people do now, they're not going to give you a loan, though you can pay the loan every month. So they've got to look at multiple factors. They got to look at their credit score. They got to look at their job and if they can make the payments. They've got to look at how long they've been with the company and if they're going to be getting cut anytime soon. Or yeah, there's a lot of stuff you got to look at in order to give a loan out, and them just barely looking at a credit score.
Well, this wasn't very uncommon though during that time
yeah,
with the securities market and everything. People, they were investing into multiple houses,
yep,
not able to pay off the loans, and then when they found out that they had a variable mortgage rate, prices went up and they defaulted on their payments and they couldn't pay it back. So I feel like was just a normal thing going on during the time.
well, you know what it reminds me, I don't know if you guys remember the whole problem with Wells Fargo. I don't know, like a couple years ago, where their sales people, they were trying to make sales because that's how they get paid, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like these people, these salespeople, they were doing the same thing. They were required to make a lot of sales loans in order for them to make money. So they were signing people to, you know, they might not even be able to pay for that loan. So when I was reading the case, I was like, you know what, that kind of brings me back to Wells Fargo when they had the problem where people were even making up people's names, in accounts and, just to make money. So,
Yeah, I used to work at Wells Fargo as a banker a few years back, right before the first issue that they had. And I remember one of my coworkers coming up to me and they were like, "Do you need renter's insurance?" I was like, "No." I'm pretty sure you do. No, I live, I'm renting a little, room in this guy's house right now. And they're like, "Nah, just in case."
Yeah.
It's funny.
So which elements of the business do you guys like or you agree with, if any?
Yeah, I do feel like there needs to be more microfinancing or just financing or in our kind of just everywhere in the world right now. But I don't think this is the way to go about it. I don't think I think like whatever all of us have said, I think it's important to get a good credit check and make sure people can pay back loans. But I do like how they were targeting people that needed the money. So, but you don't know if they needed money because they're just bad with money or they need money because they need that opportunity,
Yep.
So I like that. I like that they gave people funds in order to do something with it, but you need to educate people as well. So
Well, and that's part of the problem is they just gave out funds not knowing what they're going to do. I mean, yeah, sometimes that's personal and they don't need to know, but still, I mean, there should be contracts in place to where if it's not used accordingly, then more interest or whatever is taken upon.
Yeah. Hey, James, welcome.
Hey, guys.
So,
hey, James.
So we're talking about Progresso right now, James. So
Okay.
Okay. Hey, anybody else has anything with that question? And I do agree with you, Dave. I think there were it was nice to give money to people so they can make something, and progress in life and that kind of stuff. but at the same time, they should have more education, like you say, finance education. So perfect. So how many new loans do you guys think they need to break even? So, and if you guys look at the papers that I sent early in the day, so this is my math, and once again, I might be wrong, but the number of loans that they need is 150. 150 loans to make a profit, a profit of $132. So, and then the interest in each loan, it's about 8,200. It just depends on the amount of the loan that the person is asking, So that's gonna vary. But in general, it's gonna be like 150 loans.
Yeah, so they need quite a bit of
They
bit
do.
along the break even.
Yep.
I think I know I'm jumping in late here. I think a big part of why they're not doing well is their pricing. Like they're trying to keep interest rates really low, obviously, because that's what their whole model is getting affordable interest rates to people who really need it. But a lot of times there are reasons companies like that buy as they do, and it's not just straight up greed. It's because that's what you need in order to run a business like that.
Yeah.
So if they had higher interest rates on their loans, then that'll bring the number of loans down. But
if you think about it, James, and I totally agree with you. But if you think about it, I mean, I'm sure everybody here in this group has a credit card, right? And and actually I have a really good credit. And one of my credit cards, so it's the entrance, it's like about 21 something, Now I don't use that one because it's pretty high. But even when you have a good credit, I don't know. It's really difficult, especially now. I don't think you can get anything below 18, if that,
Right.
So,
well, and that's just the nature. That's what I say. I mean, that's just the nature of that kind of business is.
That's how they make their money. So
right. So it's I jumped in right as you guys were talking about them being educated in the business. It sounds like, and it seems like they just really weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were also saying how if you are going to loan out large loans with high interest rates, it'd be a good idea to educate. And they talked about this in the case, educate your customers on what's expected of them.
Right.
Like what they have to pay per month, and just make sure that they can pay it back. Because if they can't pay it back, there goes your business.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and the next couple questions, guys, it's talking about doing, to break even on the loans, and then to develop a broader action plan to include specific activities. And if you guys go to the paper that I sent, you can see all those activities that they need to, to be successful, at least in my mind, in our minds, I guess. But I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add to the last two questions.
Yeah, Ramon, I had a question about the research that you did.
Mm-hmm.
So you suggested they give them commission only on compensation bundles.
Yes.
Yeah, I just had a question, like, and then you gave some examples as well about a couple of companies that take advantage of that. And what exactly is that?
So basically, so what I was trying to say, Dave, it's that when they do bundles, for example, if they're gonna ask for a loan for a car, a home, or like you were mentioning when you were Wells Fargo, they try to offer you for insurance. So I was thinking more about put all those loans together, so the customer can pay just one fee, and by doing that, their insurance, it would be a lot less than having three different loans.
Mhm.
So that's what I was referring on that. So I don't know if you can understand what I'm saying. So, but that's that's what I was thinking. Instead of going to different banks and having three different loans for a car, a home, or a business, why not just do a bundle with Progreso, and then just pay one insurance fee, and one payment every month. So
So just have like one option for a loan and then a set interest rate
and that's set interest rate.
instead of
Yes.
instead of kind of adjusting to their particular need.
Yep.
Okay.
And you know what? And they have to agree. The customer has to agree before he signs anything. But the customer is not basically Progressive is the one who has the paper in the hands and say, you know what? If you want a loan, if you want to combine the loans, this is how much you're gonna pay.
Okay.
So. Anything else, guys? We good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking over your document as well. I agree that that could be a feasible option.
I mean, because if you and you know what, Dave, the way I was thinking, I don't know if you guys seen all those commercials where they put all your accounts of credit cards into one, where you do one payment and you pay one.
Yeah, where they consolidate your debt.
There you go. Yes. Now they do that for a business too, and they charge you and that kind of stuff. But it's actually a good idea for people who owns a lot of money, though, to the bank.
Yeah.
So that's the way I was thinking, basically. So
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Just kind of debt consolidating.
yep. And you know what? For a lot of people, works pretty well. But honestly, if you have a lot of debt in your credit cards, you can basically call the credit card company and be like, "Hey, can you work it out with me?" And at the end of the day, if they're nice enough, they'll give you chances. So
Well, most of the time they just want you to pay as long as you're paying something.
yep.
They don't really care. They just want their money back.
Yep. So, but anyways, okay, guys. So we're gonna go to the Noodles and Company case, and there's a couple of questions about it. So the first one is, what made Noodles and Company an attractive opportunity for Aaron Kennedy in 1995?
So for me, I put that it was a market that didn't really exist yet.
Yep.
It was something he knew, noodles and just comfort food. It was kind of alluding to the case that we did with that one restaurant. It was the fast food space, but it was classier than that. And so just all of that, I think, played into it.
And it's and I think he in the case they're talking about. I think he went to a restaurant. I don't know if it was Chinese restaurant or something like that. He was looking at these places, and he was thinking, how can I make this better? And if you guys been into a Noodles and Company, it's actually pretty good. And they don't have a lot of different plates and all kind of stuff, but it's easy and fast and it's good. So I think that was his idea, something, what can they make better to offer the customer, and that's when he came out with the idea. So, and that
Yeah,
it's still
I
going
think
on.
that restaurant's an acquired taste. I went there once, and I just didn't care to pay that much for the amount of pasta I got.
Yeah.
But
I
whatever.
mean, I like the place, but yes, you're right, Connor. So, anybody else?
Yeah, I think most of the world eats. He recognized that most of the world eats noodles, so
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously a worldwide market for it.
And if you think about it, noodles are pretty cheap too,
They're super cheap.
Yeah, so they can put this fancy sauce on it and just charge you $10 for a plate. So why not?
I mean, you can get a box of pasta, for instance, for like what, $2 at like Walmart.
Yep,
You can feed a lot.
exactly. So I think he had a good idea, I mean, he has a good idea because he's doing business and doing pretty well. So the next question is, what caused the company's early struggles? Why do you think so? I think the beginning was with the operations. Even though the team knew how to run the company, they didn't have the experience in the food industry. If we think about it, and this caused them to lose quite a bit of money for the first couple months. So
The big thing I hit on was the separation between the two locations. It was the same company, but they were running two very different stores.
different stores, yeah.
And so the difficulty there being communication. They've obviously franchised and have figured it out since then. But yeah, I think communication was definitely the one of the big factors early on for them. I like that the case talked about giving that if you can afford to test in a different market, you absolutely should. I think they took that a little too far by going 1,000 miles away. But I agree with their decision to test two markets, just not the second one that they chose was, I think, a mistake.
Actually, that's a good comment, James. I didn't think about that, but yeah, you're right. So, anybody else? So the next question says, what role should franchising play in the company's growth? I think one of the roles to grow, is the franchise will help the company by eliminating the amount of risk that they are taking, along with helping to spend faster, without their own money or without having to raise any funds to spend. So if you open it up for the people to buy a franchise, I think it's easier for the franchise owner, to be like, oh, you know what, I'll give you my store, but you got to give me money, and it's in my opinion, it's so much easier than trying to find money or raise money to open restaurants.
Yeah, definitely, because they have their process established really well. Why not make other people pay for all that risk?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my only concern, was whether they have that process down. Whenever you go in franchise, you always have the risk of losing control or quality control over your product business.
Yeah, I
Which is
think,
true.
which was one of their big concerns. But I think a third, maybe a little more of the case actually talked about their process of getting those quality assurance things down, of ensuring that they weren't going to run into those kinds of issues. and so I didn't see that it would be a problem for them.
And then even in the case of, I think it was on the case, or one of the questions that we got in, turned in, they were talking about, well, what will you do? Will you just do franchise, like your whole business, or will you keep 50% of your restaurants and 50% franchise? And honestly, if you want to be on top of your restaurant and not sacrifice your food, anything, then you keep 50% of your restaurants and you franchise the other 50%,
Right.
So that way you have a better handle of what's going on and all that kind of stuff. That's what I think that they should do. But
so in that respect, for me personally, my opinion was that it's all or nothing kind of a thing. You either are all owned by yourself or you're all franchised. Because as soon as you start splitting your attention, like you would need to in that kind of situation, stuff starts to potentially slip through the cracks. And that's just been my experience with things like that myself. I know that there are companies that do it and they do it successfully. But yeah, my own personal experience is telling me it's an all or nothing kind of deal with stuff like that.
Yeah,
So-
I'm with you on that, because I mean, you look at some of these big companies like McDonald's, one of the biggest franchisers. They don't own everything. I mean, they just franchise it out and make money off of that. That's how they make the majority of their money, through franchising their name and product.
Right.
I mean, then you look at like In-N-Out, who they're privately owned. They don't franchise anything. Yeah, they make good money, but do you know how much
Out
more
on a
money they would
huge
make?
market. Yeah.
They would make so much more money if they franchised it, but because, no, I don't want to sound sexist, but because a woman is controlling it, she wants to keep it in the family and
Right. They've got
not
those same
franchise it out.
reservations of they need to maintain control.
Yep.
So, but let's go. So you guys are giving us an example of these companies, but what about if I tell you about Chick-fil-A, for example? They don't. So the system that they have, it's that whoever wants to operate a restaurant, the only thing you have to pay is $5,000, right? But you own the franchise and you have to work it out. But most of the money goes to Chick-fil-A, So if Noodles and Company can do something along those lines, where, okay, you know what, I'll keep some of my business, but I'll let you pitch in, pay me some money. I'll let you have your franchise, but with the mind that you have to understand, I still own the restaurant.
Right. Well, so I don't know if
that's
you guys
what Chick-fil-A does, So
right. I don't know if you guys looked at their franchise agreement that they eventually came up with. It was $15,000 establishment fee, and then 6% of all sales was their franchise fees. And so that's kind of what they ended up doing. In the case, at least, I don't know what the actual franchise agreement is for Noodles and Company, but it was similar to that.
Yeah. And yeah. So, anybody else have anything to add? No. Okay, next question. What are the specific advantages and disadvantages of franchising model for Noodles, including the financial, economic, and organizational consequences?
So there's the obvious ones that we've kind of already talked about right now of, lack of control in the stores and things like that. But one that I think I didn't really consider until we had this conversation tonight was they've only got 58 stores right now throughout the whole country. Who's going to want to franchise a restaurant that nobody's ever heard of?
That's a good point.
Because in all honesty, I'm with you on that, because until like a year and a half ago, I didn't know who Noodles and Company was.
Right. Well, I knew about Noodles and Company when I was in high school, but that's because I lived in Wisconsin. Nobody I knew outside of the state knew what it was, and so it was a fairly nerve-wracking franchise opportunity.
But
for a
wouldn't
lot
you
of-
I mean,
think?
I only knew about it because of a case study I did a year and a half ago on Noodles and Company.
Oh,
That's the only way I
really?
even heard of it.
And then you had to try it out, right?
Yeah, and then I
It was
tried
good.
it, and I'm like, yeah, it's not
We
as
have
great
one
as
here
everyone
in
made it
Idaho
out to
Falls.
be.
Hey James, and I'm not in disagreement with you, but think about it. So I'm thinking about myself, right? So I live in Denver, Colorado for many years, and then that's how I knew about Noodles and Companies. And honestly, personally, I like the place. Now that I live in Florida, I'm like, why not bring one in here? You know, I mean, people don't know what's Noodles and Company, but I know it's good. It can work it out, right? It can be successful. So,
Right.
in my opinion, the way I see it, you know, yes, there's not a lot of people who know about this place, but if somebody knows about this place and knows that it's good food, it might not be cheap though, but it's good and it's good customer service and it's clean. Why not give it a shot, you know? And then just
Right. Yeah. All franchises start somewhere. I just don't know personally where their exposure was at as a restaurant. If it was a place where I would have been comfortable saying, "Okay, yes, let's open this up to franchisers."
I see. Yep. And I think one of the advantages that if they do franchise, you know, it's lower risk too. Because you know,
Right.
if you franchise, then you're not paying out of your pocket. People are paying
So,
you.
right. So an example that I am thinking of right now. I don't know if you guys have Culver's wherever you're at.
Yes.
That's another one that started in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, yeah.
When I was in high school, I grew up going to the original one. And so I actually met the owner of the place when he was starting the franchises. Met him on my way down to Utah to open his first set of stores. And Culver's has done really well as a franchise. They just have been under a little bit of scrutiny of that kind of lack of exposure thing. Were they ready to franchise where they were only based in Wisconsin and nobody had ever heard of them before? Were they ready to do it? I thought they were good, and that it obviously has gone well for them, but that's just an example I had just thought of.
Yeah, you have to also consider their competition in the area.
Yeah.
That was one thing when what is it called? When Dunkin' Donuts came west, I think it was West Coast. I think it started on East Coast. When it was brought west, you know, they had to think about Starbucks and how they can compete with that, or like Krispy Kreme.
Right.
Yeah.
Those were the two issues that they had.
But yeah, I do agree with James. You know, you have to start somewhere, and if you're not gonna take the risk, then why have a business, right? I always say, okay, so you have to have a plan B. You know, if it fails, what's gonna be your plan B? But you have to try though to see if it's gonna work. Because if you just, you know, if you just think about it and not try, then you're always gonna have that in your mind. Oh, I don't know how I would have done if I opened my business. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, any other advantages, guys, that you think, or disadvantages that you can think of? I think they've touched on one that once you franchise, a lot of these franchise people might not follow like the recipes, you know, every step or the procedures that they have, you know that. So
Yeah, you have to worry about quality control, and then you have
there
to
you go.
hire people to maintain that, make sure that they're
Oh, and
So
I mean, if you franchise, like I know, shoot, who was it? I just did this study. I think it was McDonald's, but they do they were hearing bad reviews that their food was not good at this one location, so they went and secretly tried it out and then found out that they weren't following the recipe. So what they did is they just pulled their franchise license from that place and said, "Sorry, you can't make this anymore." Oh wait, no,
Right.
sorry, it was Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola did that. They were bottling it. They were not following the recipe. They started tweaking some stuff, and Coca-Cola over in like the Philippines or something pulled their licensing agreement with them and said they weren't allowed to bottle there anymore.
Huh.
So a lot of people do that. If you're not following what you're given to franchise or license or whatever, they'll just pull it. They don't care.
Right. There's protections for the franchisor that say, you can't screw us like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's amazing how many people actually try and do it too.
There's another disadvantage that I just thought of. I had a conversation with a guy last night who owns a Papa John's franchise. One of his big headaches as a franchisee with Papa John's is that there's such a huge national company now that their corporate headquarters, the franchisor of Papa John's, is really out of touch with what actually goes on inside Papa John's restaurants, as far as like what works, what doesn't. They're all all the eggheads are really focused on just the numbers and the data, and so their R&D department really suffers because they don't actually field test anything. It's all big and corporate, and so that's an interesting thing from the franchisee side of things. That can be a disadvantage when your franchise gets really big, especially.
Yeah, that's a good point, James. Because as you were talking, my mind remember about I don't know if you guys seen that show, Undercover Boss.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. That's why they go undercover so they can see how franchisors are doing, and what can they work instead of focusing on numbers and making money and that kind of stuff. So that's a good point. So yes. Anybody else before we go on to the next step? Good. Okay. So I'm going to stop this because we're going to get into our assignment. Okay.